Sergey Spivak versus Jared Vanderaa. We got minus 230 on Spivak and plus 190 on the UFC newcomer Jared Vanderaa. And let's start off with Vanderaa, who's a tough alum, not tough, sorry, I keep getting them mixed up, but the Contender Series alum. He fought on pretty much, I believe it was the first week in November when they came back from their little bit of a hiatus. And he finished Harry Hunsucker within 3.5 minutes of the first round. I believe Hunsucker was a very short notice. Oscar Cota was the one that was supposed to fight Jared Vanderaa. If you guys remember, Oscar actually ended up fighting the Nate Diaz's protege. I think his name was Nick Maximov. Where he was like completely outsized by like 40 or 50 pounds or something like that. But either way, with Harry Hunsucker, he came in on super short notice, and we saw it. He knew that he only had a limited amount of time to get it done, and he threw pretty much everything into all of his strikes and started gassing about 3 minutes or 2.5 minutes into that round. That's where Jared really started to take over, took down Harry Hunsucker, and then just absolutely obliterated him with some massive ground and pound. He came in as a heavy favorite in that fight. Minus 280 makes absolute sense due to the short notice nature of Hunsucker, as well as how undersized the Hunsucker is as well. Before that, he did go out there and beat the MMA veteran, Tony Lopez via decision. Unfortunately, I just couldn't get access to that tape, so that kind of sucked. And then before that, he lost to Henan Fahea. That was another one where I wasn't able to get tape on that. The ones I was able to get tape on, though, were very underwhelming. So the first one that I was able to watch actually was the Vernon Lewis fight. That was against a guy that was 35 years old, so 11-year difference, as well as a 4-year layoff is what Vernon Lewis was coming off of, and he was still able to go out there and outstrike Jared Vanderaa for at least 2 rounds to take home a unanimous decision victory. Then he went out there to EFC. He went over to South Africa to fight for that promotion, and his first fight over there was against an 8-5 guy named Elvis Mayo, who seemed like a boxer, literally just a boxer. Couldn't deal with the leg kicks of Jared Vanderaa, and then Vanderaa eventually finished him in that second round. The Ruan Potts fight, I'll give him some credit for. I didn't get to see that fight as EFC does a really good job of keeping their tape under wraps. But Ruan Potts, he used to fight in the UFC, so to be able to get a victory over him, even though that Potts was, let me confirm the age, he was 42 years old when that, or sorry, 40 years old when that fight happened. So he's just going out there and fighting just absolute old dudes. And then the last fight in EFC was against Ricky Micholas, who just seemed to be a striker who was 7-7 at the time. So that's all you really need to know about his level of competition at that point. The Tony Lopez one, I'll give him that. But anytime he fought anybody with relative, talent, Richard Odoms, who was 42 years old, finished him in the 5th round. Not a good look there at all. Andrew Van Zyl is another one who fell to Stuart Austin, who did give Dalcha Lungiambulu, who was the champion at the time, a run for his money. And then obviously Lungiambulu was able to beat him via split decision. So very, very sketchy record on Vandera's part. I will give him credit for beating guys like Ruan Potts and Tony Lopez, but Sergey Spivak is just a completely different level at this point in time. Now, I know that Spivak gets a lot of flack. Actually, let's quickly talk about Vandera's fighting style. It's just a very simplistic, kind of slow guy. He trains over there at Dan Henderson's training facility. Sam Alvey is one of his training partners. He goes out there, just has a very slow-paced game plan, has a jab, a nice left hook, a leg kick, takes the fight down when he needs to, but it doesn't seem like it's something that's truly on his mind. Does some good clinch work as well, too, but I think he's going to have some trouble here against Spivak, who going to be a big dude, too. In terms of size, we got 6'3", 78-inch reach for Spivak, 6'4", 80-inch reach for Vanderaa, so slightly bigger for Vanderaa, but I think Spivak is the much better fighter overall. A lot of people want to go out there and give Spivak some flack. I'm not sure entirely why, but he has losses to Walt Harris. Okay, you get starched in 50 seconds and you just automatically get written off. Kind of like my guy Jake Collier the other week, kind of like my guy Parker Porter the week before. But then he comes back and the arm triangle chokes tied to Ivasa. and then goes out there, loses a unanimous decision to Marcin Tybura, which isn't too bad of a loss, given how much of a vet Tybura is. But then he goes out there and beats Carlos Felipe in a solid fight where he's stuck behind his jab for the majority of the fight, and then in the third round goes for a takedown and just rides that top pressure and lands bombs from on top on Carlos Felipe to pull away with a decision victory there. Now he comes back about 5 minutes later to fight 5 minutes, 5 months later, and fights this up and comer Jared Vanderaa, who has two more fights than him, but I think Spivak is just much more talented all around. So we've seen Spivak spend time over there with Alexander Volkov for a couple months, but he has also come over to Vegas now and started training at the Performance Institute and even Syndicate MMA, I believe it is, or it's Extreme Couture, one of those two. But it's a gym in Vegas. Spending time with Francis Ngannou, spending time with Hani Marks, who's another former UFC fighter. Some good work that Spivak is getting in. You know, I think he has a much more complete game than Vanderaa at this point in time. A little bit quicker to the punch. Ability to mix in the entire MMA game will make it very, very difficult for Vanderaa to come up, make up the difference here in terms of skill. Now, I'm not the most confident in Spivak at that minus 230 line. I wouldn't be mad at anybody that put him in a parlay or anything like that. But personally, that line's a little bit too wide for me. I do think that Spivak is the better fighter. Don't get me wrong. But, I still need to see a little bit more from him. And even Vanderaa, a lot of people are just writing this kid off. And I kind of understand why. Again, sketchy record up until this point. Doesn't seem to show anything that really glows off the page. Yeah, I will go with Spivak to win this fight. I'm not sure if via finish or decision, but I could see him just taking down Vanderaa. It doesn't seem like the hardest thing to do, and kind of just riding top pressure, or even just kind of slowly chipping away at him and jabbing his way to a victory as well too. So I think the volume of Spivak will be able to be a definitive factor here, as well as his ability to take this fight to the ground. So once again, I'll go with Sergey Spivak to win this fight via decision.